Our reading on this Sunday before Advent comes from John's Gospel, and it's the account of how the religious leaders take Jesus to Pilate, the Roman governor. They take him to Pilate because they want him killed, executed as a criminal of such magnitude that he demands capital punishment. And our reading is from John chapter 18, verses 33 to 37. Pilate went back into the palace and called Jesus. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked him. Jesus answered, "Does this question come from you, or have others told you about me?" Pilate replied, "Do you think I'm a Jew? It was your own people and the chief priests who handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom does not belong to this world. If my kingdom belonged to this world, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish authorities. No, my kingdom does not belong here." So Pilate asked him, "Are you even a king then?" Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. I was born and came into the world for this one purpose, to speak about the truth. Whoever belongs to the truth listens to me." It's a stark reading, and it began with verse 38, this section, where it says, "Early in the morning Jesus was taken from Caiaphas' house to the governor's palace." And it mentions how the Jewish authorities didn't want to go inside because they wanted to keep themselves ritually clean, because they wanted to celebrate the Passover. Now, that ritual uncleanliness could have been solved very easily by bathing at sunset, and all would have been well. But it's fascinating, isn't it, that they were so aware of their religious practices that they wouldn't even go inside the governor's palace with Jesus for risk of being defiled. Well, for being defiled, no risk implied, it would have happened. And yet, we're talking here about a man's life. They were so totally and utterly convinced that they needed Jesus killed that they took him to Pilate on that morning. And yet their own sense of religious worth and their own sense of practice and rightness prohibited them from taking a few steps inside a building. It's incredible. A Pilate is just the governor of the Roman state. He's in Jerusalem, which he isn't normally, because it is the Passover, and civil unrest is more likely to happen during these festivals than any other time, so he gets close to the action. He's woken up early in the morning by these people who he has to deal with, who he has to rule over, but also carry with him, who he has to appease, who he has to listen to. They matter, even though ultimately he could crush them, but there are so many, and he is the occupying force. So he needs to work vaguely with them. So they come with a claim, probably not for the first time at all, that here is a criminal deserving of the ultimate punishment that only the Roman authorities were allowed to dish out. And Pilate is just got this problem to deal with. And what is striking about the engagement that we have, the conversation that we have with Pilate and with Jesus, is that it's so very different from all the conversations that Jesus has with other people, sometimes who come up to him angrily asking him things, but often, of course, seeking things from him and wanting things from him. In those conversations, we learn a lot about what God in human form is all about. But in this conversation with Pilate, we still do, because Jesus doesn't answer Pilate's question and ends up interrogating him. But the person asking the questions, in this case Pilate, isn't doing so out of any interest or any engagement at all. He is neither looking to Jesus for Jesus to do something for him, which is quite common, nor is he looking to put Jesus down or prove a point about Jesus. He literally has no interest in this man. He's just a problem, like sorting out any other problem that the nation who his nation rule over brings to him to sort out. He's just a logistical issue. And what I think is stark and interesting is the way in which we see a person who has no engagement and no imagination and no ability to even see what is before him, being in the presence of love incarnate and not being changed by one jot. He has a simple job to do. He's got to make these religious authorities go away, feeling like they've been dealt with, to the extent that they won't then go away grumbling and moaning and creating some kind of hassle for him and his forces at a time when they're stretched and already doing so much in the city to keep everybody under control. So he wants this problem done and dealt with. And so he tries to deal with it in a civil way. So, what have you done? He says, well, are you the king of the Jews? Is the starting accusation or the starting kind. Because presumably, although we're not told that, presumably the religious authorities have told Pilate that is the reason this man claims to be. Perhaps they've even hung that sign around him. Are you the king of the Jews? Are you an insurrectionist? Are you someone plotting rebellion? Are you a civil criminal who I could say, yes, you're inciting unrest and so you need to be killed? And Jesus comes back with that question. Pilate says, this isn't coming from me. I'm no Jew. It's just your own people are telling me this. I'm just dealing with a problem. So Jesus says, no. He has a kingdom, but it's nothing to do with this world. Now, that doesn't inspire any interest. That doesn't inspire any questioning or any kind of investigation from Pilate. It's just okay, well, that doesn't help me either. So are you even a king then, he says. Jesus refutes that too. And so Pilate goes on in 38 to say, I cannot find any reason to condemn him. So there we have it. There's no reason for the Jewish authorities to get Jesus killed. But still, in the verses that follow, they'll do anything to get rid of Jesus. And so we have this interesting and relevant encounter of how people deal with God in human form, in their encounter with God in spirit now. There are those who will be confronted with ultimate love and will hate it to the point that they want it gone, will angrily rebuff it and reject it, even though they're in the presence of it, for all sorts of different reasons, but not least, as we've said so often before, because it doesn't fit with their ideas of how life should be, because it offends their sense of tradition and importance, because they don't understand it. Yes, because they feel threatened. Or it could be, and this is what's more coldly obvious from Pilate's encounter, they've got their own agendas and their own jobs to do, and this is frankly not on their radar. It's not something that even computes. It's not even something that they're going to listen to or see. And to think of love, freely given and expressed, being trampled on in this way is stark and is cold and is quite shocking. And it reminds us as Christians that when we talk to people about the love that we've experienced in our hearts through Jesus, crucified, resurrected, free, through his Spirit to move in and through our hearts and minds today, this many centuries later, that may be heard by people to whom it just doesn't compute, and they have no tools available to even begin that journey of imagination, to think that there is anything more than what they can see or touch. It's so interesting to imagine and to remember that that is indeed how some people can be. So in our encounters, what will make a difference, of course, is our actions. Because words and opinions are one thing, and there are many people who we encounter who will say things that they believe to be true, or an attitude that they have, which we may disagree with quite nastily, or quite completely and comprehensively. But that's the way people are. We all have our different lenses. But in terms of what we do and what fires us and what motivates us, well, nobody can change that. People may think you're crazy for being kind and loving and caring and inclusive and speak out against prejudice and do all the things that bring together the kingdom of heaven here on earth. But they can't doubt the fact that you're doing them. You may be a thorn in their side, but as long as you are true to God and true to love, then ultimately that will triumph. But it could well be that you're confronted with people who simply don't understand why you're doing it and violently object to the fact that you are doing it. That is a situation that many Christians face today in our world, but also, of course, in the smaller things of life. But to do good, to honour God, is what we do because it is a truth we know. And Jesus says, I was born and came into the world for this one purpose, to speak about the truth. Whoever belongs to the truth listens to me. And we claim that we do understand that truth. And so we do listen to Jesus, and we do try to live a life which shows love to all people everywhere.